So where are we and where are we heading? First off, to the 193 of you, for those who've been watching for a long time or for those who are newer to the channel, you found something you liked and thank you for sticking with us with the journey. It's been a long time. I'll talk about probably consistency issues later, but I just wanted to start off by saying, thank you. And because of where we are, because it's still early days, I think there's a lot of more room for experimentation. And I think that's what we're going to be doing. I'm going to try to show up here more often, just do the work, not talk about it, not apologize for it when I'm not here, but just show up and experiment. The format can keep changing or evolving. I probably need to kill a lot of ideas, murder, and try to evolve what's good or what we think is good. So please, join the conversation and let me know. I know in the past, business models have been popular. When we hit the nail on the head with the regular co-hosts, we have Jangan from Momentum Works, Dave, Andrew G in the past, which again, can't rely on Andrew anymore. But then, June has joined us recently, but he's on his new journey too. Talk about more of that later. Coordinating those guys have been really hard, especially when they had full-time jobs or now, I guess, are venturing into new ventures. And that's part of the consistency issue as well for the original format. So let's go further a little back. Everything started during the pandemic, and the original idea was EOA, Entrepreneurs of Asia, which was just kind of a hobby podcast talking to friends and peers in my network, in my circles, talking about kind of their journeys, who they were as people. And I think I found it very motivating. I found sparks of joy in natural dialogue and conversation. And I think that's what really appealed to me. And I think that's what kept the fuel burning. And I think that's what I kind of lean on as I keep progressing. And part of the reason why I think things haven't been consistent, and I've only come to this narrative recently when I was listening to The Creative Way by Rick Rubin, was that I get a lot of joy. I get a lot of fulfillment, satisfaction about the creation aspect, the creativity part, the part where it's an exploration and you learn something new. Or I learned that I'm very fascinated by individuals and learning about them. And so I loved exploring. But that kind of format or that unstructuredness, if not consistent enough, or that doesn't improve over time, definitely doesn't lead to growth. And the problem was, as this dragged on through the pandemic, of course, part of it was this monotony around, editing and not having the right tools at the time, which has changed greatly in the past, I'd say 1 to 2 years with the rise of AI. The program I used, Descript, which was pure transcription, is now full-out blown video editor. New features are making it easier. Aside from that was part of it in the early days of why I wasn't as consistent. I'd sit there for hours editing transcripts because the transcription AI wasn't as perfect, but more so in that there was a need to monetize because I was going through an unconventional path. I think if I look at all my peers, not many people are attempting to do something very consistently in media or thinking about it or engaging it, either from a building standpoint or just producing content. More so, I dragged Jangan to do it. Momentum Works is doing their own thing with it now. But yeah, it's very unconventional. And so I think that need of pushing for monetization and trying to optimize, living in the analytical, which is an afterthought from the creative, was a huge blocker for me. On one hand, when you have to monetize and you have to make things work for the algorithm, formulate things in a certain way, cultivate an audience, you lose the spark of joy. And I think it kind of showed in the motivation for doing the hard work. So if I had to sit down for hours and edit a video, it would definitely take longer because the spark of joy was killed because I had to think about it in the analytical way versus a pure creative way, minimal edits, just releasing into the wild. Of that, would this make money? Would this grow? How would it grow? And then getting lost in the big picture I wrote about this on my latest Substack and last video post you could check out. That's one of my biggest weaknesses, is being top-down, trying to solve what I wanted to do in media from a top-down perspective. And so that kind of led to a lot of inaction or dragging my feet, and then therefore the inconsistency. So instead, I've been thinking about this a lot, and I might have to solve monetization in a different way, whether it be through coaching more people, taking more consulting projects, taking a job if I have to, which I might. And then taking my time to be more consistent and exploratory, especially in the early days. And I think the people who are on the ground with me now have the advantage of engaging and defining that content. So please, definitely let me know what you're thinking. So in terms of content, I've decided to kind of, so when I started EOA, it was very more exploratory, journey-oriented, very focused on entrepreneurs. And then a year later, I started LLB, talking about more trending topics with regular co-hosts, 2 different formats. And I was living in this idea that I wanted to do many things in media and formats, and kind of the idea of a bigger holding company kind of came about. Again, as you can see, it's very top-down, working my way down, which I shouldn't have done. Absolutely a terrible idea. And even what I'm saying now is probably what it goes against the advice of how you should start a YouTube channel or do video content these days. But for me, what I'm focused on is sustainability and consistency and making sure I keep that spark alive. That's what I'm going to do. And so I need to focus on what keeps me going, right? And at the same time, try to craft and improve slowly of the things that will make things grow, more polished edits, better curated content pillars, very specific, clear strategies that will get us there. But I don't want to live in that too much, because then I end up not doing much. I'd rather just show up every day, do a little bit, put it out there, then improve it. Kind of a bottom-up approach. Goes against what I'm kind of naturally inclined, of how I'm naturally inclined as a person. So instead of going broad, I'm going to live in this niche, try to go deeper on topics around the same things that are in our wheelhouse, right? Our wheelhouse is very important. This is where we add the most value, where you guys get the most value as a community that exists, the problems that we can solve together. So things around startups, VCs, angel investing, founders, entrepreneurship. And since I'm also based in Southeast Asia, things that are in Southeast Asia that can bridge things maybe to the West, because a lot of our friends, our networks are also from US, Europe, etc. So kind of bridging these two worlds across these pillars, and maybe more interesting things too. I mean, there are projects that can go on as the community grows where, who knows, with enough subscribers, we can maybe even go talk to LPs, raise a fund. In addition to that, of course, I will be doing more shorter episodes, solo content, because it's very hard to always schedule people, especially if I have to travel around, or if I'm working on other projects, or if I have a day job, or if I can't get the regular co-hosts together. Right? So kind of that's where we are. I am blending EOA into LLB. So you're going to see more focused interviews with founders, investors, businessmen too, because I think businessmen have legacy, especially the legacy of the businessmen in Southeast Asia, have great impact, have interesting stories. We're the original entrepreneurs, kind of where we see the institutions and industries and big business today. They have a lot of stories to tell, and the next generation coming up, taking over. So that combined with regular, maybe exploring my friends' networks on a deeper level, maybe talking about their journeys in multiple episodes across all facets, maybe something worth exploring. On top of that, if we do gather as a group of friends, then we talk about the business model stuff. So I think there's a lot of room to experiment, like I said. I think it can go in any direction. I'm not sure what's going to take off. And maybe, we're doing this consistently for a few months. We see one direction and we go with that. So the journey is always evolving. I'm here to keep building of what matters most. If any of this resonates, let me know in the comments. Subscribe and let's continue the journey.